welcome back to Pushing Pixels. I'm your host, Sam Mestis. Today we're going to talk about the text tool and what I consider to be the go-to tools in regards to the text tool. Now, you can do a ton of things with text, and these are some of the, what I call the hot buttons, are what you need to know the most, I think, about the text tool, how to get the most out of it. So here we go. I have this document. It doesn't matter even really what size it is. It's all just set up for the sake of demonstrating what Photoshop's text will do. So let's get started. I'm going to turn that off real quick. First thing you can do is just do what we call point text. So if you go to the text tool right there on your left, or if you hit the letter T, that'll also get you text tool. And if you just click somewhere, you can just start typing. I'm at and return and typing and return and typing, and those are what we call point text tools, or point text. You can move it around. It can go as wide as you want, as deep as you want, and you'll also notice over here in the layers tab, you'll have a new layer, and that's where all that new text went. It also has a T for an icon, and that means that this text is live. If you double click on that T, it'll highlight all your text for you, and you can go through and change it to whatever you want it to change, and things like that. That's what we call point text. The other type of text we have, I'm going to dump this in the garbage real quick, is what we call box text or paragraph text. And the same thing, you grab the text tool and you make a box. You drag out a box, and all your text now will be confined to, I'm going to take my spacing out of this a little bit, down to 12, and maybe take my text down to 12. And now all the text I type will be confined to the inside of this box. And you could reshape this box if you just grab the handles downstairs or down below, and you could just keep reshaping and type as much as you want, and the text will be confined to that box. Now let's just say I don't want it to confine to this box. Again, I have a new layer. It's live text. I can go back again, double click the layer icon, and go back and edit it. But let's just say I don't want it in a box now. I want to go back to point text. You can right click that layer and convert back to point text right there. And now if you go back to edit it, it's just a bunch of individual lines. There's no bounding box around it, and you can just keep going. Alright, so that's paragraph text. I am going to dump this. Let's talk a little bit about some placeholder text. So I'm going to go back to the text tool. I'm going to drag out a box right here, and let's just say I'm waiting for my copy guy to get it together, and he hasn't really, he's running behind schedule and hasn't got my copy for me ready yet. I can fill this with just some random blank text. So if you go up to type up here and paste lorem ipsum, it will fill your bounding box with just random text. And it's really all just placeholder text, and you can replace it. It keeps filling it up no matter how much you stretch this or how wide you go. It'll keep refilling. I'm going to change my justification to left, and that's how you just make random placeholder text. Okay, one of the other cool things we can do with text is, again, I'm going to dump this. I am going to use my text tool and type just something basic. Like this is text. This is learn how to type. This is vertical text. Great. So I got that text. So even though it's not vertical text, it's actually horizontal text, I can change it to vertical text on the fly. If I double click it and highlight it and go up here to this little box right up here and click that, it will now turn my text vertical. So you can space it all together some more. And now I have vertical text, or I can go back to horizontal or vertical, and that's a real quick way to get something done really, really fast. One of the other things you can do with text, actually, I'm just going to keep that text. I'm going to go back in history a little bit, and let's move that. There we go. One of the other cool things you can do with text is you can change color of this text on the fly. It pretty much has a lock transparency on it. So hypothetically, if I want to pick a different color, let's say this orange right here. My foreground color is orange. If I just hit Alt-Delete, it will change my foreground color, or my text color, to the foreground color. If I want to go back and change it to something a little darker, like a brown, there it is. Already locked. Another place you can do it is over here in the text tab underneath this text icon. You could change it there as well. Alright. You can also, if you want, go into text edit mode, double click the layer, and it's also right up there at the top. So 3 places to change it. You can change it on the fly, you can change it here in the character dialog box, or you can change it up top. And that is not too bad. Pretty cool. You could also just change one word of text if you want. So for example, if I go into the text tool and I select vertical, let's say I want that text to be green. There it is. Now my text, now I have just one piece of text that is colored. I'm going to get rid of that real quick, and I'm going to pick a more appealing color to look at. Not so much that. That's way too light. How about this blue? One of the other cool things you can do is you can free transform this. If you just hit Command T, you can scale it up, and if you watch the numbers up here, you'll see them get larger. I'm going to just hold down Shift, and now I'm able to scale that up proportionally if I want to by holding Shift and Alt. So you can still take advantage of the free transform tools. One of the other cool things you can do, let's get that back down to size, is you can, well, let's do this. Let's try this real quick. Here's a fun one to do. You can change this to a smart object. And the upside about changing to a smart object is now you can sort of take advantage. For example, I can't do distort, perspective, content aware scale, or puppet warp, or anything like that as it stands right now as live text. But if I convert this text to a smart object, right click, convert to smart object, and I go into the free transform mode now, I can do all those cool things. So it allows me to do some really fun things now. For example, I want to say do some perspective work. Alright, so I'm going to scale this up a little bit. Alright, that's not too bad, right? And maybe I want to do some distort. Maybe this corner I want it to come out a little bit more, so it's leaning a bit. Alright, and maybe I want to warp this a little bit. Maybe give it some bend back here. All completely editable text. And it's a smart object, so even though there's no T there, it actually still is live text. If I double click on the icon, it's going to open up this Photoshop file called a PSB file, and this Photoshop file actually lives inside this Photoshop file. It's really nested inside. So now I can go through here and make some changes. Let's just say I want that to be gray. Alright. If I save it, close out of this and save, and now it updates my text in my document. Still editable. It's a smart object. I can also add filters if I want. Let's just say I want to put a Gaussian blur on this. That's 20 pixels. That's a lot of blur. It's still there. Even if I go back and free transform, it's going to tell me it's going to turn it off until I make my changes. Let's say I want to change that perspective some more, and it'll come back. There it is. Or I can go back and change this. The client didn't like gray, it wants that blue back. Alright, save, commit, and then save, and it'll update my deal. I can go turn my Gaussian blur off because maybe it's just too much now. I don't need that. Anyway, so that's kind of a great way to be able to use the free transform tools, converting text to a smart object, keeping it still live text, and things like that. Let's get rid of, let's go back in time a little bit. Let's see how far I can go back. Bing. That's what I want. Yeah, that'll work. Let's get that text again, and let's just say I want to show you some other stuff here. I'm going to move tool. I'm going to move it down here just so I can see it a little bit better. I'm going to double click that layer, and if you go to your characters tab over here, and if it's not over here, you can turn it on in the Windows right there, character tab. And in this case, we're going to talk a little bit about some of this cool stuff down here. First of all, we have an on-the-fly bold. It'll bold your text. You have to have it double-clicked and selected. Okay. Italics is here. It'll do a lean on you. This is probably the most underused one. Convert to uppercase, will take all your text that's lowercase and convert it to uppercase. The other one you might use is underline. You can do some text underlining, and strike through. If you need to do a strike through, it's all loaded right here. The other things that are up here are your text size, your text spacing between lines, your kerning, which is space between letters, text height, text stretch, your color. It's all right here for you to use. One of the other things that's right here is if you double click, and I'm going to take that strike through out, you can right click on your text and get to spell check. And spell check will come up. In this case, it's everything's spelled right, but if I was missing that C, right, and then I double clicked and went to spell check, it's going to find the word vertical and make some suggestions. In this case, it's suggesting that. I will change that. Spell check is complete, and now my text has been spell checked. I'm going to go up to uppercase here. Oops, wrong one. There we go, uppercase. I want that back. Awesome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about shapes, shape dynamics. Now, this file has a shape circle on here, and I actually just made that with the ellipse shape tool, right, and gave it, and set it to path. Actually, I set it to shape and built it that way. But the main reason I did this is because you can build text on a path. So if you grab your text tool and come over here to your shape, your ellipse, make sure your ellipse is selected, and there's the properties for it right there. You can bring your text cursor over to your shape, and I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little squiggly line that appears through it, and the box disappears. And if you click while that little squiggly line is out, it will place the cursor on your path, and then this is text on a path. It will allow you to type text along a path. You don't even need this path on anymore now. It has already made its own pathway for itself. But then you can use the path selection tools to go through, and now you can rotate it. If you grab one of these little icons, these little pull nodes right here, all right, you can rotate it along the path. You can bring the text in and outside of the path, which is kind of cool, and do those sort of fun little things. These two little squares that you see, and just by grabbing that and dragging it in and out, you can place the text really wherever you want to put it. So not too bad. It works pretty good. Inside and outside shape. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, this is kind of cool. Let's turn that off. I don't need that anymore. Let's talk about, and I'm going to turn that path off. I don't need that anymore either. Let's talk about this right here. If you want, all you web guys, if you want to generate some CSS code for this, Photoshop will help you do that. For instance, let's just say I wanted all the CSS code to regenerate this in my CSS code. I can double click on it and then right click on the layer and copy CSS. Now what that has done is it has taken this text font and converted it to CSS code for you to place inside Dreamweaver or your web browser or whatever you want. And I'll show you what it looks like here. I'm going to make a bounding box, left justify it, 12 characters. I'm going to set my spacing to 12 so it all fits in there. And inside there, I'm just going to paste the code, and there it is. This is all the code for your CSS that will generate this text and this font size and this color and whatever, and it's all right there for you. There's the color coding and everything. You can just paste this into your whatever web tool you're using to build your website, and it's all there for you. Not too bad. And one more final thing I'm going to show you with this. If you're in text edit mode like this, no matter if it's paragraph or if it's just point text, if you hold down the command key, that's really a move tool. So in case you need to move this left to right, holding down your command key will allow you to do those kind of things. All right, so that's kind of all your text tools it at once, at least the pertinent ones, I think, the ones I use the most. Give it a shot, and good luck. Have a good day.